guys ready to talk about some trades? Let's just do Tarek Skubal will not be traded. That is what I think. You do not trade a Cy Young leader in the middle of the season, no matter how bad you are. They're not the White Sox. They are not rebuilding. They are improving. They're 500-ish. They're getting better every single year. He is a bona fide ace. They have to hold on to Tarek Skubal. But you would be crazy to trade Tarek Skubal. Now, Garret Crochet, on the other hand. What type of prospect does Jack Flaherty get? I think he should bring in a couple prospects. Let me just double check. What is Jack Flaherty's contract right now? 1 year, 14. Good landing spots for Jack Flaherty. Orioles, huge. Orioles would be a huge one, man. I think they could go one prospect for him, straight up. I think they could get one of the top guys from the Orioles, or if they do 2 lower levels, like in the teens, Braves could go get him. I mean, I'm sure the Mets would be in to discuss, but I don't think that they need him as much. The Orioles really need him. Oh, the Dodgers? Yeah, the Dodgers are going to be mentioned in everyone. But I think that the most likely is probably the Orioles. I think that he would fit in their profile really well. I think he's had some playoff experience, and he can be a 3-4 there. He is different than he was last year. He's finally healthy, it seems. Let's also throw the Red Sox in here. But again, Red Sox, get him. It's kind of a lot of the same. He's a Houck, Cutter Crawford type. But maybe Crochet. Okay, so let's talk about Crochet. This is interesting, guys. We talked about Crochet last week. What do we need to know about Garret Crochet? His innings are going to be limited. Now, if you're going to trade Crochet, you have to have flexibility to throw him in the bullpen. So I think like Dodgers, Atlanta, maybe Yankees, but I think the big teams with the most depth will be fine. Like, I don't know, maybe the Orioles. We're always going to throw the Orioles in because they have so many prospects. Maybe an opener, or maybe a younger guy to piggyback with him. He throws 3 innings, the next guy comes in, or vice versa. But that's the interesting thing. None of these guys have thrown any innings. Skubal to the O's. The only way for a huge haul, but I don't think Elias is a guy who is going to do that. And then we got guys like Eric Fetty. Anyone could take him. He's on a 1 year deal. He's cheap. He's not dominant. He's just a depth piece. He's going to be the back end of a rotation. Tayon's a little more expensive. Let's just lump these guys together, right? Eric Fetty, Taillon, Kikuchi. We could talk about Tyler Anderson. It's funny about Tyler Anderson. He could be a guy you add to get you to the playoffs, but I don't know if he's going to pitch in the playoffs. Maybe Scherzer. Scherzer's still owed like $20 million, guys. He's expensive. Maybe John Gray. Maybe Andrew Heaney. Nate Eovaldi. Now, I'm not going to add Eovaldi. Eovaldi's probably going to be a little more expensive. I got maybe Red Sox, possibly Orioles, and I got Braves too, being a big one. Right? This group right here, guys, is the prime Twins group. Who gets James Paxton? I think Paxton goes to the Red Sox. So let's look at this group, right? Let's talk about this group for a bit. Let's talk about this mid group, maybe without Scherzer. So I honestly, I don't know. With Scherzer's shoulder fatigue thing, I don't know. But these guys, these are prime like Twins, Guardians, Rays, and then on the outside, like maybe like Orioles, Braves, Red Sox. I think we're figuring out like the Braves, Red Sox, Orioles are all trying to solidify their spots and get some starting pitching. These 3 need starting pitching pretty badly now. Yankees maybe. The thing about the Yankees is their trades them trading is just a crapshoot for me. Brewers, yeah, Brewers are a good one. But the thing with the Brewers, someone's gonna want one of your young guys who's playing really well. They're gonna be like, can we get who's the next Joey Ortiz? Who's the next Bryce Trang? I know they don't want to get rid of those guys, but like that's some type of guy they'll have to do. Tanner Scott going anywhere? 100%. Tanner Scott's a prize. He's gonna be a big one to the big buyers. So this is one that I would consider really picking up for the Dodgers. Possibly the Orioles. They both need him the most. Yeah, I could see the Yankees sneaking in somehow. Zach Eflin. Again, depth piece. He's a little bit more expensive than these guys, but I think he's one of these teams again. He's have a gem in Mason Miller, huge blockbuster for him. No, Mason Miller's going nowhere. Rooker. I think the Phillies and the Guardians. Places that you can use a DH as well. I mean, obviously the Mariners. Every hitter needs to go to the Mariners need him. I think that if the Rays sell, Yandy Diaz could bring in a lot. Randy Rosarena and Paredes. So now I would keep Paredes and I would be really open to Rosarena. Yandy's still got a bunch of control. I still don't know how, but he does. Yandy be a huge pickup. Yandy to the Mariners. As we know, the Mariners know that they can trade with the Rays whenever they want. But we're looking for outfield help, right? And Whit Merrifield is day-to-day, so we're okay with that. We're still holding out hope for Whit being able to fill in some of those spots. What about the Jays selling? Dude, the Jays selling, that's going to be a game-time decision, right? So let's talk about Bichette and Guerrero. I think it's going to be last minute because there's 2 things. They need a huge haul needed for these 2 guys. You need it. because they have control. They're young, and they both have been in MVP talks before. Crochet's on the IL again. Well, let's do this. Now that he's on the IL, that probably scraps that. You go on the IL, you're out. I think what they would prefer to do, and this is a guess, but what I think the Jays would prefer to do is either trade them both or keep them both. Louis Robert could go to, again, any of the outfield help places, right? The Phillies, Yankees, Braves, like any of these places he could go, but he needs to be healthy. So if he stays healthy, but then again, here's the big crazy caveat for me with the White Sox. What the hell do they want? Okay, so we broke these guys down, right? Then we got the Angels. You better sell Estevez, the best relievers on the. Who are the best relievers? Let's talk relievers real quick. We got Estevez. We got Yates, possibly. We got Robertson. We got Green. We got Garcia. Tanner Scott. We already got Scott, but we'll do it again. Tanner Scott. Finnegan, probably Kopech, even though he is controlled. Any of these would help, like, right? This guy's a closer, this guy's a closer, this guy's a closer, but they don't have to close. I think you go get Tanner Scott to be your closer. I think that maybe Finnegan and Kopech can be an eighth inning guy. Estevez could close, but also be an eighth inning guy. Kirby Yates could be a fireman. Roberts, Green, and Garcia, these guys are all firemen. These guys are going to be cheaper. These guys are going to be more expensive. Fernando Cruz, if they're selling. So we don't know if the Reds are going to sell, if the Rangers are going to sell, if the Rays are going to sell, because all these teams are like 48 and 51 or 50 and 50 or, you know, like one game over. This is why this one's so hard. The trade deadline is so hard because 10 teams are flipping a coin. 5 teams are like clear buyers. 4 teams are sellers. There's like 10 teams that are like, and there's like 5 and 5 that are like, we are doing something. Let's talk about the teams that should 100% sell, in my opinion. These teams should 100% be sellers. They should not buy. I think the Rays should sell, and by sell, they shuffle. So they get a bunch of guys that fit their model a little bit more. I think the Rangers should sell. They got 2 relievers that are pitching out of their minds. They're on 1-year contracts. A bunch of expiring contracts that they can get a lot for. They did nothing in the free agency, and they won the World Series last year. They don't have to tear it down, but the Rangers should sell because it's a prime opportunity to sell without actually making your team a lot worse. Selling isn't tearing it down, but if you're just trying to give lip service to your fans so you can go 500 and barely make the playoffs and then get nothing out of it, you should take advantage of that. I'm sorry, guys. You know, we haven't even talked about like the Padres at all, right? Padres should buy. The Dodgers should buy. Orioles should buy. Phillies. Honestly, the Phillies should buy one thing, but they only need one thing. They're a pretty complete team, in my opinion. They're very deep. They can use some stuff, right? But if they go get one guy without having to do a huge blockbuster, like do a solid pickup where it's 2 players for one, and they grab a guy who's a big league ready and who can help their team and fill in a gap, that's all they really need. But they should. Braves should buy. They need an outfielder. They need a starting pitcher. They need one of them, at least. Orioles are exactly the same. Mets should buy. Twins, buy. Guardians are like the Phillies. Go grab one thing that helps you the most. A starting pitcher or an outfielder. Do you buy into moving Holiday for a top flight arm? Not a rental. A Jackson Holiday should not go for a rental. Royals should definitely buy. But again, the Royals, they're not going to do anything huge. I think bullpen could help. Astros are buying 1,000%. But again, I think the Astros buy one guy, maybe a first baseman. So now the Mariners and the Astros both need a first baseman. So I can't wait to see how that plays out. So what are we talking about now? We're talking about the Cardinals' starting pitching rotation. Yes, they need an ace. They have a lot of old guys that eat innings. They need a guy who is the game 1 starter. Sonny Gray can be that. They need a game 2 starter. They need 2 guys who can take over a game. Right now they have 1. The Rockies are 100% selling. I think McMahon could bring a huge haul just simply because he's a power hitting third baseman. I think Cal Quantrill could be a 5 somewhere. He's thrown well, but again, he's kind of underwhelming in pretty much every metric. Heard the Rockies aren't interested in selling? Well, the Rockies are kind of like, guys, it's like pretty much the whole league, and then there's the Rockies. They kind of just do their own thing. And I don't really hate, that's fine. I wish they were more competitive, but they're also just pretty loyal. I don't know. It sounds like not the worst thing on the planet if you're just trying to have a job in the big leagues, the place to be. So I don't hate that completely, but it feels bad for Rockies fans because that just means you're probably not going to compete regularly or consistently. And then just like Twinkie fan just said, everyone but the Rockies and the Marlins are within 5 games from wildcard spot. I do not think there's going to be a big blockbuster trade. I think the type of trades we're going to see are like Kevin Pillar. So let's look at the Angels really quick, right? I know we're bouncing around, but the Angels, KP, who is having a very good year, Estevez, and Tyler Anderson are probably their big ones. They all need to go. Just go. I think like KP goes back to the Braves, possibly. He could be something they get for very little, And we know the Braves love picking up guys they had. Rengifo, Taylor Ward maybe. Taylor Ward's a little bit more controllable though. Taylor Ward might be a bigger piece. Rengifo's free. Trout's not going anywhere because he's owed $200 million, guys. Like, this is not happening. But Winker's another outfielder that could go anywhere. Lane Thomas, the Nationals. Those two guys could bring something back for them. I think the Nationals are very close to competing. Kyle Finnegan's actually a great guy for them to trade because he's 32. And I think he's flexible enough that he'll be desired by a lot of teams. But he is due for a decline and soon because he throws 97 as a 32-year-old. And getting something for him would be smart. CJ Abrams? No, guys, the Nats core is going nowhere. CJ Abrams is going nowhere. Mackenzie Gore is going nowhere. They're not going to sell. The only guys they need to sell are Jesse Winker, Lane Thomas, and Finnegan. These guys are older or they're on one-year contracts. Anyone else who isn't on in that situation, keep them. The Nats will not trade anyone, has any control, and they shouldn't because they are on the up and up. And that might be considered selling, but in reality, it's just holding pat and getting what you can, taking advantage of a buyer's market. That's what I'm saying about the Rangers. Even if the Rangers traded John Gray, Andrew Heaney, Kirby Yates, and Robertson, that's still holding pat. They still have their core. That's not their core. They're not trading their core. When you start to trade your core, that's when you're giving up and you're tearing it down. Don't trade your core, please. Any Mariners topics I should run for? Oh, we've touched on them off and on. They need an outfielder. They need some guys to make contact. They should go get 2 bats, I think. And they don't need to be, you don't have to go get a guy like frickin' Louis Robert or Rooker or Vlad Guerrero. I think Vlad actually fits into the culture pretty well, but I think he swings and misses too. I do think Yandy is the number 1 guy they should get. Jazz to the M's. I actually am more of a Jazz Chisholm fan than most people, but Jazz is probably the worst thing the Mariners could do. Every issue that people have when they come is going to happen to Jazz. Don't think it would happen any chance the Brewers would move at Adames for pitching. I do think that's possible. Would he be wanted anywhere? Yeah, he's a shortstop. I bet you the Mariners wouldn't mind to have Willy Adames right now. That's another great call. Willy Adames to the Mariners, that's a very Mariners trade. What do the Mets do with Pete? Oh, that's another big question because he's having a down year. So he might be cheaper to re-sign and it's harder to get a big haul for a guy who's having a down year. Soto back to the Nats would be crazy. That would be crazy. You know why it's mostly crazy? Because it makes absolutely no sense. In conclusion, or in general, guys, really pay attention as we get close as the shuffling starts to happen. We haven't had a ton happen. We've had a few things here and there. The Brewers have grabbed some depth. It's going to be a ton of depth, guys. Our Guardians have like 2 weeks ago, they signed Boyd. He's a depth piece. A lot of that stuff. All right, that's what I think is going to happen. We're going to have one more show on the trade deadline next week, so we'll check in and we'll talk about a lot of the trades and what can possibly happen. So we're going to do this again next week, but this is my overall thing. Seattle's definitely buying. If they sell, people should just boycott Jerry Dipoto. So that's what I think.